Ajahn Piti, were you surprised by the decision made by President Trump to stop support for the World Health Organization?
I think it is not just surprise, it's a bit of shocking, right? Because
Right.
our organization is the main organization at the multilateral level, at the international level, in order to fight against this COVID-19. And even at the ASEAN Summit, we also talk a lot about the protocol of WHO in order to protect and to prevent the pandemic of disease, which was already implemented since the year 2005. And it was already implemented in a very, very, very efficient way. But President Trump seems to blame everybody but only himself. He never accept that actually the pandemic that happens in US and worse than everybody expect is because of his fault, not because of the WTO.
So this decision is only a way to divert blame from himself, right? As far as you can see.
This is Trump style. He always do something like this all the time. You know, he already changed his assistants, his vice presidents, his advisor for so many times already. Because every time when something happens, he always blame the shit to other people except himself.
Yeah, he's under lots of criticism by the U.S. media. And to see the ASEAN have achieved declaration yesterday. So do you think ASEAN is very much on the right track to fight COVID-19?
I think this is the most important thing because COVID-19 is transboundary. It doesn't have nationalities. Hence, the best way to deal with this kind of, we have to help each other from both sides of the frontier. We have to have the common pandemic protocol in order to allow all the mechanism, all the measures at the regional level, in this case, not only ASEAN, but ASEAN +3, to be the more like a invisible wall to protect ourselves from the pandemic of the COVID-19.
And what do you expect the action to be coming out after this declaration? Because normally ASEAN will still have procedure to follow all the protocols, but will it be in time to fight during this COVID-19 pandemic?
I think the most important thing that we are expect to see by immediately is the agreement on the Article 2 of the yesterday agreement, as well as Article, of course, Article 1 is a must, right? Because Article 1 is talking about the strengthening the public health corporations, especially the transparency, share of information, exchange of real-time situations, pandemic information from each country, because we need this information very much in order to come up with the measures to deal with the pandemic. And then another thing that I'm very excited to see is the Article 2, because Article 2 talk about the prioritizing of the well-being of ASEAN people, not only in each member state, but ASEAN people who located in the third country as well. Because as you see right now, for example, for the case of Thailand, the flight from around the world cannot arrive in Thai airport towards the end of this month. Hence, there will be Thai people that still live in other countries. And if that other country doesn't have an official diplomatic relationship with Thailand, we still need our ASEAN partners who have the diplomatic relationship in that countries in order to take care of Thai people who still left over on that countries.
Ajahn Piti, I agree with you that the summit and the declaration represent ASEAN's determination and to work together to fight this deadly virus. But don't you think that the summit and the action plan came a little bit too late?
Actually, this is not late because this is not just the first thing that ASEAN did after the pandemic. We have a very, very close relations. For example, we have a foreign minister meeting since the 20th of February in Laos, PDR, and that's the foreign ministerial meeting with China, right? And then on the 13th of March, we have a senior health official meeting in order to link all the departments of disease control in 10 ASEAN countries to work together and set up a new system. This system, so-called Emergency Operations Network (EOC) in ASEAN. And then on the first week of April, we have another foreign ministerial meeting. And along the way, we also have the online meeting between ASEAN Economic Minister and ASEAN Defense Minister as well. Hence, up to now, we have at least 5 or 6 important meetings in order to establish the strong mechanism among 10 ASEAN countries to deal with this COVID-19.
So you mean the groundwork was done long before the summit yesterday, right?
Correct. The summit is just the time to show political will at the leader level.
Formality to
everything was already done and already well prepared.
And with the ASEAN +3 special summit with ASEAN leaders, how significant of this kind of meeting?
I think this is very, very important because China, Japan, and Korea is the 3 countries who have an outbreak of COVID-19 since the very first week of January up to February. And right now, the situation in these 3 countries seems to be under control. Hence, they already have the know-how and technology as well as experiences in dealing with this kind of problems. So lesson learned from these 3 countries, plus the lesson learned from each ASEAN countries, when we can share this together, I think the mechanism to prepare ourselves in order to curb the pandemic slope will be better.
So what do you think will be the most immediate step that the ASEAN countries need to take together to fight this pandemic?
I think we try very hard in order to slow down the pandemic curve, right? And I believe that in order to make that thing happen, we need to share information among the 10 ASEAN member states. Because sharing these information about what happened in each country will allow each country to calculate and prepare the plan to deal with the next steps. Because in order to deal with this kind of pandemic, we need to think ahead of the virus, right? We have to set the scenarios, what is going to happen in the next 2 weeks, in the next month. And in order to make this, we need a clear and transparent information sharing, not only in Thailand, but at the regional level.
As you know, Thailand has been widely praised for its handling of the situation. Maybe Thailand is in a good position to share its experience and lessons with the rest of the ASEAN countries.
I think each country in ASEAN has their own strength point. For example, Singapore, they do a very, very good job on tracing all the people who infected by this COVID-19, and at the same time has a very, very strong mechanism in order to cut the cycle. For Thailand, I think the state of emergency we announced by the end of last month and doing step by step and not to intervene the normal life of people, but still can control the outbreak of the disease is another good experiences that we can share with other countries. For Malaysia, when they close the border and it creates some problems, that's also another good lesson learned that if you have to do the lockdown, we still have to keep the market open for trade. We still have to keep the supply chain to run as normal as possible because preserve the supply chain connectivity is another keyword in order to ensure that the flows of medical, the flow of food, the flow of essential supply still reachable by ASEAN household.
And Ajahn Piti, when we take a look in terms of socio-economic relations of ASEAN countries with China, we know that many countries have relied a lot on China. What do you see after this crisis? Will it even emphasize more closer relations with China, or will it be the other way around? What do you see?
In terms of world order, I think after the pandemic, we can ensure that we are going to come back to the world with the bipolarity, because now we will not have only one superpower nature, which is US anymore. Since US doing so many wrong decisions during this pandemic, and China, to be the superpower nation, to be the leader, you need the followers. And after the contributions of China to so many countries around the world, especially in European countries, I think we can say that after this pandemic, we go back to the world with the bipolarity when you see China and US at the same level.
So you expect to see a big role to be played by China, despite the fact that China was the epicenter of this pandemic a few months back, right?
Correct. I think in China, we can separate the development of this pandemic into 3 stages. The first stage is the first stage that we lost so many faith on China because the local government cannot deal with this kind of thing until the doctor who discovered this outbreak, died by the virus. And before he died, he was blamed that he shared the fake news, right? Hence, this is the failure. But good point about Chinese government is they did a lot of mistake, but they never repeat the mistake. And they tried the solution right away. And they do it they come back on the good track very, very fast. Hence, after that, China entry into the second stage. You see a very, very brave decision in order to lock down and shut down the big city like Wuhan and Hubei provinces. And then you see the third stage when China can contain all the outbreak and start helping other countries with the know-how, with technologies, and of course with hardware. Because China right now doesn't have only technologies, but also have the hardware to help other countries as well.